Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 9:30 and I will now call to order the PlanRVA Audit, Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. Thank you all for being here. As you know, we made some changes. Mr. Hollins, likely not to join us as a committee member, but in his absence and with consensus from the full commission, I assumed the role and responsibilities of the Chair of Finance Committee. So I thank everyone for their trust and confidence in that. Do we have any questions? For the record, Mr. Spoonhour is here, Mr. Atkins here, obviously staff, and myself as the chair. I will ask for a formal roll call. Ms. Scott.
Yes, sir. Charles City County, Mr. Atkins.
Present.
Chesterfield County, Mr. Holland. Goochland County, Mr. Spoonhour.
Here.
And Hanover County, Chair Davis.
Present.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Very well. We have a quorum. We have no request for remote participation. Is that correct, ma'am? Shepherd?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Administrative items. Have everyone had an opportunity to review the January 27th, 2025 meeting minutes on page 3 of the agenda? Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Any comments? Is there a motion to approve? So we have a motion. Is there a second? Second. There a motion to second. All those in favor by voice vote? Aye. Motion passes. I have no amendments. Are there any amendments to be requested by committee members? Hearing none, we'll move to 3C, open public comment time. Open public comment time is time where anyone who wishes to address the committee on any matter within the committee's authority is welcome to come forward and address the committee. You will have 5 minutes. Please state your name or the entity that you represent. I see no one present in this room. Is there anyone online? Mr. Kumar? No. Seeing none, we will now close public comment time. We'll turn it over to our CFO, Ms. Shepherd, for financial management system discussion item. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we have 3 agenda items today, and they're all somewhat related and overlapping in impact. The deeper goal across all 3 ties back to one of those 5 fiscal year 26 key imperatives you've seen at recent commission meetings. To ensure compliance and agency sustainability, specifically financial sustainability, by providing a clear understanding of the agency's financials. Since our last finance committee meeting in January, my first day of employment, I've had an opportunity to dig further into the financials. As Mr. Davis outlined at the April 10th commission meeting, staff is recommending a new financial management system for the agency. Recognizing that the commission voted at that meeting to approve moving forward on this critical initiative, thank you all for your support. I'd like to take just a few minutes to provide a very brief update and allow for any additional questions. Staff are continuing to explore agency needs and vendor options for the new system. As an initial step towards migration, we are planning to eliminate one of the 4 software programs currently required for payroll by consolidating our payroll processing system and timekeeping system into one. This change will create significant efficiencies for our back office staff with minimal change management required for the larger staff pool as they will continue to enter their time in the same system. I'd like to take a minute to recognize members of the finance team, Diane Fusco and Karen Robinson, for being strong proponents of this first step and providing support as we navigate this change. We will get back to the committee as we move further along with this process, including sharing potential budget impacts, if any. Any questions before we shift to a brief overview on fiscal 26 budget planning?
Not the fiscal. Could you kind of state what your changes that you're looking at in your accounting automation system?
Yeah, so a little more detail about the payroll piece or just in general?
Just in general.
Yeah.
And your vendor too.
Yep. So right now, I'm going to start with payroll. But right now we use 4 different systems. We touch 4 different systems just to process payroll. We enter our time in one system. We then export that and move that over into a third-party payroll processor. And then we export from there to get the journal entries required to enter into QuickBooks. And this is in addition to quite a few Excel spreadsheets. So there's a lot of manual manipulation happening. There's a lot of systems coming in, data coming in and going back out to other systems. There's a lot of opportunity for error. I have complete respect for the team, but that's just the nature of the process that we have right now. QuickBooks, it does a lot of things well. It has no controls, no financial controls. So at a recent meeting, we had an auditor present, that was for CBTA. That auditor from PB Mayors mentioned specifically the lack of financial controls in QuickBooks. So there are risks associated with that. Complex revenue sources. This is a very complex organization with very smart people running it. With so many complex revenue sources going into a system like QuickBooks, there's a lot of opportunity for error. There's a lot of opportunity for us to get a better line of sight for a longer time horizon with the grants coming in. I've got a graphic I'll share in just a few minutes, but we've been talking a lot at recent meetings about diversifying funding sources given the federal climate, and a comprehensive financial system, a better grants management system will allow us that line of sight to be able to see, we'll better wrap our arms around what grants we've got in the pipeline and what else is out there. One of the systems that we're looking at has the functionality where we've got our grant writer would be able to write grant applications and put all that data into the system. If that grant was awarded, it's a quick button click and that becomes a live grant. So just a lot of efficiencies that we'd be gaining by moving to a more comprehensive, true grants management and accounting system.
Okay, is this new system in the cloud?
It will be, we will be focusing on systems that are in the cloud. Yes. We've had some really good conversations with with a couple vendors. We even spoke to the VDOT CFO was here at a meeting recently. I talked to her about possibly using Cardinal. That's not an option, unfortunately, for our agency. I've talked to a lot of planning district commissions up and down the Southeast at a conference that Martha and I attended in the last few months. I have not found another PDC that is happy with a solution that they have. And so essentially what we've done is kind of taken a step back, zoomed out, who else is receiving a lot of federal funding and what systems are they using? And so I've reached out to the Urban Institute, who receives quite a bit of federal funding, and their software vendor is probably our front runner right now.
That's good.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any questions? For purposes of the agenda, we'll just move, since you've got 3 items. If there's no questions on each one of those, just move between 5 and 6.
Sure. Okay.
And with no pauses, unless somebody has questions, we will jam it up.
Got it. Sounds great.
Thanks, man.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to shift to that fiscal year 26 budget update. So there were exciting budget developments late last week as staff received from VDOT the PL or planning allocation amount for development of the fiscal year UPWP, Unified Planning Work Program. As the committee knows, this funding stream is a significant portion of the agency's transportation budget. So having this data is critical for budget development. An initial review reflects approximately 80,000 in additional federal funds for fiscal year 26 as compared to the prior year. This committee is also very much aware of certain fiscal uncertainties heading into the next fiscal year, particularly around the federal funding climate and the trickle-down impacts. Staff is working collaboratively using the best information we have at this time to develop the remaining revenue and expense estimates. We are tracking budget planning at the local government level as well, and wanted to give the committee a chance to share any feedback and take a temperature check, just given everything happening with the news on tariffs and the expected cost of living increases. Initial inputs for the PlanRVA budget include a 5% compensation and merit pool to retain and attract the best and brightest staff, as well as increases in technology spending as we continue to work towards modernizing our operations. I'll pause there if anyone has any feedback they'd like to share in terms of their own localities' budget planning.
I will briefly. It's interesting. Y'all get this. I mean, there's never a time. I've always said there's 3 things that localities have to do. First and foremost, we have to meet. We're required to meet. We can't make decisions unless we do meet. So we have to convene. We have to work on budgets, and we have to work on land use. I mean, I can't think of anything that's outside of that doesn't touch one of those two things. And it was interesting, I was talking to Mr. Spoonhour the other day, and I've recounted this numerous times, and giving you credit for it. I didn't plagiarize anything.
Well, let me hear what it is
You didn't
first,
say,
and then I'll.
you know, normally,
if I want credit.
yeah, I mean, normally if Mr. Spoonhour says something really smart, I'll repeat it and not give him credit for it, but, I said, what's the one thing since you've been in local government that really surprised you? I mean, and of course, probably could have gone on for hours and hours and hours. And the first thing that Neil said was how expensive things are. And man, that I've talked to so many local folks, even on national level, out in different localities, and I've recounted that. We're always working on budget. Hanover, we just passed our budget, so it now becomes the Board of Supervisors of the county budget from the county administrators proposed. And, I think that now that this organization's moving in a different direction as it relates to finances. Things have grown so much. The numbers are so much bigger. But staying in that budget mind frame, which is something that Ms. Shepherd has done, I can see that I know you've been here for a long time, but you're constantly in the budget mind frame, and that I think that's really good leadership on your part. But it's moving us in a different direction. You know, I think this is all integrated. I say all that to say this is all integrated, and I think we're going to see more and more budget mindfulness as it relates to the inner workings of the PlanRVA budget. It's TPO working with CVTA, with Director Parsons. And, I'm encouraged by it, but also know that we are in unique times. And contrary to what, we're seeing on the news, and know people are concerned or whatever. I mean, there's never been a time that we haven't worried about what other people are doing with the money that's eventually going to come to us. I mean, how many times since we've been in office have we wondered about what those folks are, when are they gonna get their damn budget together, right? I mean, we don't know. So I do want to kind of open that up. Are there any concerns that folks are seeing back at home that you think come this way? Or there things that you've heard of? We all talk a lot about different things in our localities, but what are the thoughts there? Are we heading in the right direction? Are there any things that we're looking at? Mr. Atkins told me 2 months ago or whatever, so we were leaving here, and I think and I've said this in front of the commission. You said, look, if it's not funded, we don't do it. And that was really, I think that's good. So my idea is to monitor all revenue streams and sources. Keep an eye on that. Ask Ms. Shepherd to do that, obviously with Ms. Schickel. Mr. Parsons knows that that's been a big focus of mine on the CVTA, coming from the full authority. Monitor that, and then the only other thing that I had is, start looking at some of our contract for services, how we're awarding contracts, work with Mr. Gregory in those areas on making sure that the folks we do business with understand, our funding sources. And that is something that I think we're gonna have to discuss, because I know it would be hard for me to go and work for somebody not knowing if that, right? I mean, so there's a challenge, but then I don't know what the other option is. So we're gonna have to really look at some language, because imagine somebody coming out saying it. And the reason I bring that up is I had someone call me the other day that had about $300,000 worth of work that they had done for the Fed, and then they didn't get paid. We contacted the congressman, and he said, hey, this is likely what happened. That is, all this stuff was getting moved around. That gentleman is going to get paid for his services in the audiovisual world, but it just got caught up in the Doge or the whatever. But those are the big things. Make sure we're monitoring those, being budget minded, all of our revenue streams, and then really have some looks at contracts for service are the two things that I've thought, Ms. Shepherd really need to focus on. And I don't know, the second one could be rather arduous. I don't know what we do there. Want to get some legal counsel, and then we want to get some practical, good business sense in there amongst our members. So those are my comments. Anything, Mr. Atkins?
That pretty much covers it.
Okay.
And I'd like to focus on, you said knowing what our contracts are, and I think the vendors should know upfront what they are. So That's pretty much it.
Look. This is hard to say, because, I always. When you talk about salaries, it's tough with organizations, but. And not just with PlanRVA, but public sector salaries and increases have been outgaining private for the last 3 years insanely. We scaled back this year in Henrico, and we hoped the region was gonna come with us and scale back to a reasonable cost of living adjustment. And then we open the paper the day after we pass our budget and we see what new salaries are for some public safety folks. Is just blowing us out of the water. So we have, we're both hiring new county administrators now, and just the taxpayer dollars that are coming in, because I believe of this real estate, I don't know, bubble that we're on, and we keep waiting for it to crash, but that's my concern, is that we're taking tax, and we're blowing up the public sector salaries across the board. So 5% to me feels like a lot. But and on the other side, it doesn't feel like it's enough. So I just wanna, but so I don't know if that's, I know we had tried very hard to have our county administrator work with the other county administrators to kind of see if we were all gonna stay in line. So I don't know if you all do that as organizations, to look at other organizations similarly. Other than that, I feel like we run a very tight ship, and we're on top of it, and so I feel good about budget overall. It's gonna be interesting to see what the next year brings, as far as, like we're, it's the one thing that it's like a crystal ball kind of thing.
Thank you. This is great context and feedback. And we will consider all of these comments as we continue to develop the fiscal year 26 budget. We are not bringing a budget to you today, so this will help inform as we plan and model, and certainly we'll take that into consideration as we model going forward.
I do want to talk about salaries. We've looked at that as well. I made a comment to our public sector folks the other day, that we do what we can, and we've added, with fire and EMS, we made the choice, personnel, raises, so on and so on. I mean, we had to balance those out. And I will say, I think the average consumer, who are the bosses, right? The people who consume these services that we're there for, recognize that they have to do the same thing in their personal budgets or their business budgets or whatever. But I did tell some folks, our county employees, I said, we're not in competition with other localities, meaning that we want to stay competitive, but we're not competing dollar for dollar, simply because, we can't do that. Yeah, there's just no possibility to do that. And then we balance out, are we gonna lose some folks who are at a particular career level and then maybe go somewhere else? And I saw some of the things in the paper, and, happy for the people who are receiving it, good for you, but that's not a possibility here. And, years ago, I went to get a raise for an administrator that worked at the firm that was a direct report. And I laid out all the things and went to one of the owners of the firm who handled the finances. And he said, man, he said, that was a great presentation. That's a valued employee. And then he said, Sean, that position doesn't pay this. So, that, and I think that's one of the issues that we have is, they're just certain, with pay scales, there's just certain caps that you have, and then there's steps in between, particularly when it comes to the government. What we can't do is do what DOD does. DOD's got all kinds of money. They say, if you're at this rank and this time in service, I mean, it's pretty easy. You just look at the chart, but that's because they can equalize across. You got this many years in service, you got this particular, rank, whether you're GS or whether you're in the military. And so I think one of the issues that we have, it's kind of one of those things. I always look at the cable companies. It makes you mad when the cable company offers an incentive to somebody to come on new. And you're like, well, dang, I was here long distance back for those. Martha's too young to remember long distance charges, but they were the time we used to have to pay for a long distance phone call.
You mean like with a
With a,
with a phone. It was like, and it had a wire and it was on your wall and you could, yes, you could use it. And it was a weird thing. It was a weird thing. And you pushed a button and it was, yeah, very strange.
Oh, ours had dials.
Yeah, so you had dials, right? But,
It didn't cost as much if you had a party line though.
and they were the best. Because when you were a young person and you could get on your grandma's party line, you could learn all kinds of stuff. But the idea is, and we saw this with PlanRVA, is, you want to reward the people who are there, try to maintain competitiveness. Then you end up with compression because somebody comes in and says, hey, look, this job pays $10 a year, right? Everywhere else. And you're like, yeah, well, I haven't hired for that job in 8 or 9 years. And so to bring someone in at that position, you say, okay, well, here's the $10, right? But what happens to the people who've been here? And so we end up with that compression. And, we're also in a different world where it used to be folks connected to public sector. The benefit packages were really good, but the salaries were. And as the market moves, and I tell folks, inside a government funded organization, we still have market impacts. And, I can't even imagine what y'all are working on with county administrators. I would imagine, without getting into your, and I have no idea what your discussions are. But I mean, I would imagine the discussions and some of the numbers that you're looking at to bring somebody over that you feel is competent, that has experience, you're like, wow, that's a big number comparatively speaking. But if not, who do you draw in? And so I think we're dealing with the same thing here. So is there any discussion over the inflation's gone through the roof, and know that, but is there any discussion, I mean, any problem with continuing to budget around that 5% kind of number?
I don't have it, but I haven't been in private sector either. Just getting the talent to come in to deal with the uncertainty of where you are. It's almost a risk coming into these jobs now. And then I also say, and I haven't been in private practice, there's not many people that can come in and stay in these jobs and give you some continuity. It's just, but it's never been, these jobs are demanding, the hours you put in is beyond it, and the skill level. But not only do you have to have a skill level in automation, you have to also have a high skill level in interpersonal skills. And it takes a combination and a balance on that. And if you lack it in one of the other areas, you don't maintain growth in the organization, nor do you maintain staff.
Yeah. Sure. Let me ask Mr. Spoonhouse real quick, and then yes, ma'am. Did you have any?
I think it'd feel better if we had some sort of benchmarking.
Okay.
Like if we knew like
Sure.
other organizations in the Richmond area that, I mean, obviously we're the PlanRVA. So, but I think that would just help the full commission. And again, I don't know where other localities are. Like we went 3% this year, which was much. I mean, I think we were 8% last year. So it's just been big. So again, I think other localities may be right around the 5. I don't know.
Yeah, to that point, we can pull together what each of the 9 local governments, I think the city typically is gonna fall behind where we're gonna wanna bring this back, but I think most of the other counties are either have approved or whatnot. So we will pull that, and we typically do try to get that temperature. I'll tell you from a competition standpoint, I don't know that the local governments are necessarily our competitor organizations, but because of our inherent relationship with them, I think it's important to track there. We also have the benefit of Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission did a salary survey this year. It's helpful information to see what other planning district commissions are doing. The markets, as I mean, you're gonna see Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads that are probably out of our, we're a lower cost market, but compared to, the Valley or Southwest, we're gonna be a higher, but it's helpful information. And we also have the benefit of a recently released, the NATO, salary survey that was just published in March. So I've got the national, a state, and then and we can, I think, do a little bit of reach out to my colleagues, and while it's not a PDC, a
Right.
regional planning organization or, you know, other regional organizations to see how they're approaching that. So I think we can bring all of that back as well.
I don't think it has to be too exhaustive. Just
Yeah.
something to.
I think that makes a lot of sense though.
Yes.
And we'll use that for that comparison. I think my hope would be that we could model somewhere between 3 and 5 and see what our, you know, kind of what the results of that look like. The other part of it, and we spent some time on the executive committee meeting, which I know you were all at, so we don't need to rehash that, but I mean, there's no question that compensation is a big part of our retention efforts, but it's also those other things that we talked about in detail. And I know that Lauren and Diane have committed to kicking off a discussion of an evaluation of our health insurance benefits. You know, I'll say enjoy the benefits of being a part of the local choice program. I think your counties might be a part of that as well. So it's pooled health insurance for
I think it
government,
is, yeah.
you know, lots of school systems, special purpose organizations like ours, smaller local governments tend to participate in that program. It's I think beneficial every couple years to at least just sort of explore what's out there. The marketplace tells us that right now they could offer something less expensively. As you know, though, when you go into the marketplace, you become subject to what's happening in the market, whereas the local choice insulates us a little bit from that. So there's a commitment in the first quarter. I think you guys are gonna kick off, right? An evaluation of that just to sort of see whether the benefits that we offer. We are planning to renew with local choice this year. Open enrollment actually kicks off, I guess it's next week, May 1st. So, but just wanted to hit on those couple of other points of, you know, those are pieces to the puzzle on this staff retention conversation.
And this is just more from my understanding. When we bill for the hours, like towards a grant or towards a project, will this increase, but does this? Let's say somebody's making, call it, you know, $50 an hour, will we now charge
Yes.
$52.50
Yes.
or 50?
Yeah, so the way that our billing works, just generally speaking, for all employees is they have their rate of pay on an hour, we bill out on their hourly equivalent plus the fringe is a rate applied. So our total costs for leave and benefits are pooled into a calculation and then that rate is applied. So, you know, I think like it used to be 35%, it's higher than that now, but yeah, it's in the 40s. And then we have an indirect rate applied atop that helps for us from a cost recovery perspective, recoup expenses. Leasing, office space leasing is the easiest one to point to. And so we bill through those things. So when we increase salaries or when there's a health insurance premium, that gets folded into that allocated rate.
So then, to keeping it simple, increasing our salaries, we pass that cost on to our customers. So it's more expensive to work with us now.
Yeah.
I don't know, figure it out. Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
In terms of presentation and format of that fiscal year 26 budget, we'd like to ask for some structural grace, knowing we'll be transitioning to that new financial management system.
How much grace?
So using the best information we have
Back to a napkin.
at the time,
Yeah, right.
It's gonna be better than that.
it'll be better than that.
Okay,
We-
all right, so somewhere in between, right, we're working, we're negotiating, somewhere from a napkin to a binder. Okay,
We will come back to the committee in May with a budget that may later change in presentation and format as we refine the general ledger structure going into the new financial management system.
So when we turn in the abacus, we
Yeah.
want to be able to.
Yeah.
use
everybody
our-
pull out your calculators. Okay, I'm gonna need some clarity because presentation is second to content.
You got it.
But folks, but presentation does mean, and as an example, I've asked county staff on occasion, to keep in mind, business major. Not, yeah, all right, so 2 semesters of accounting, enough to know that we pay money. I was on the phone with my accountant today, that's
Great.
what.
Yeah.
But I have asked her, hey, could you add another column, give me this information, this data, so I can turn it into information? And so, I wanna be careful, and I wanna say this respectfully, so where you can get the head nods and maybe consensus, and please don't take this the wrong way, I don't want it to look like, okay, we still gotta make sure we get that up. So what are you looking at?
Yeah, so I'll reference a little bit of the conversation that came up in my interview as far as how to, so when I think about committees and boards, I think about strategy drivers, right? You are here with your expertise, your knowledge, the broad scope of your knowledge of your community. And so I think my job as staff, management, is to be sure I provide you with the relevant data to be able to drive that strategy.
Yep.
And so you'll see today and going forward, I'm gonna plan to start elevating the level of data you're getting. The level of data we will review in these committee meetings. You will still receive a detailed budget today. You will still receive a detailed line item budget that you approved at the commission level. I'm going to dig into some summary, high level, executive level variance analysis, because I think that's really the data that is relevant for you to be able to drive strategy. I'm not taking anything away from this fiscal year as
Yeah.
far as what you're getting. And so I think really sort of working those muscles as to what we really dive into at the committee and board level is unique and I think a little bit of a change from this committee, but I think we're getting to know each other and
Yeah, sure.
and yeah, so I'll
Okay.
pause there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's good. I say this somewhat in jest, I don't need an explanation when paper clips are 2,000% higher than they were, last year because we haven't bought paper clips, in 10 years. I get that. But we did have the one issue where we were like, hey, I think we need more information to be published on this. And Mr. Spoonhour checked me up on that, where I turned around and said, look, we don't have a financial issue. We've got that. And he said, are you sure? Meaning, that was a really good point. If I put that piece of paper in front of somebody, it doesn't come with my verbal
Okay.
comment. Yes, right. And so we're gonna have a lot of moving parts with finances now. What I don't want to have happen is any commission members get the impression that hey, the reason that this may not be exactly what you were looking at is because we're working on stuff in the back end, and it's like, oh, they're really busy, head down. And it's like, no, we still gotta report out. And I didn't take it as you weren't gonna report out that way, but
Of course.
I do think that, yeah, if there are data points that need clarification, if we have to lay a bunch of papers out, we can do that. Then we'll get a flavor, if I understand you correctly, kind of what this committee's looking at. And then the full commission to say, hey, this is how we want this built out. Is that right? Like, okay, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that because I know there are gonna be a lot of moving parts. The other thing is, budgets connected to, strategic plans and your initiatives, um, in my opinion, the only way to do it. I've told folks if it's not in the budget, then obviously it's not a priority because it couldn't be. Doesn't mean it's not important, but it's not a funded priority. So structuring a budget, which I like, we haven't necessarily had this in the past, at the level I'd like to see us go to, is here are our priorities, and then there's some math connected to that. I think that'll help the commission be, transparent about what we're doing. Not that we haven't been transparent in the past, but money has to be connected to our initiatives and our strategic plan, to show that this is how the work's gonna get completed. So, any comments, concerns? I appreciate what you said, though.
I think for me, again, you guys are gonna hear me harp on this. I feel like it's bringing up almost every meeting. I don't mean to, but we did something last year that we hadn't, or maybe it was last year, that we hadn't done in 10 years, which is raise our dues. So what can we show from a budget perspective that was a good decision, and that we are taking that into account And so, because it very well, the story could be, I'm not saying this is the story, but the story we want to maybe avoid is if in fact, not the true story, but somebody could look and say, okay, you've raised your dues, you're increasing staff salaries, you're raising the cost to do business with you. At what point, where's the break? Like, what's the bang for our buck here? And I believe in my heart that the value we provide far exceeds the dollar amount, but that's my heart. I'd like it to be in my head.
Yeah, you're raising all very great points, and finances and technology are so intertwined today. I think one of you asked about, the new financial system, is it going to be in the cloud? We're talking about how we can incorporate more AI at an agency level, not individual staff members coming in and throwing stuff into ChatGPT. There are tools that can take minutes at meetings and provide summary and action items. And that doesn't mean we are eliminating any staff. I spoke with Frank Petrovsky, one of our planning representatives from Chesterfield on Friday, about how can we as an organization start utilizing AI without scaring people. And he had a really wonderful line that people leveraging AI are not going to eliminate people. People leveraging AI are going to eliminate people not leveraging AI. And so when I think about our return on investment, the value that we're adding, we have to keep up as an agency. And that may require initial investment in things like technology and people that maybe more than we have in the past. And I hope that we think about that as an investment. I think it may take some time. I think we're gonna have some early wins on this, but we're looking at it in the long term.
Let me flip that. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
how amazing would it be if PlanRVA was the leader in helping local governments understand how to best use AI? Like, that's hot. Like, I think that's great.
Yes. So these are things that, we want to be a leader in our community with our localities. We want to be a leader across PDCs. I think that's something that we as an agency could really be. And I think it will take some upfront investment in modernizing our operations a little bit.
And I think the hope is that if we can present beyond a 12-month budget cycle, a model that demonstrates that we have the ability to invest in those areas, then, I think about it it's an investment in the people that are here and the infrastructure, so that we're not coming back to you next year and saying we need to add more people. So Lauren and I sat through a session at that same conference about the impact that leveraging some AI tools, again, not with the idea in this current staff structure that we're going to eliminate positions, but it's going to prevent us from having to increase the number of positions that we have. So if we can achieve, they threw out 30% increase in productivity. I'm not sure that that's likely for all positions, but what Lauren's talking about with transitioning to the financial management system, a more integrated system, I can see that that's pretty realistic when I think about the amount of time that her team is spending having to triple check their work to convert, so I think hearing you talk about the member dues that were approved in November, this is where we could really, and hearing Mr. Davis, you say, we want to see how do the priorities connect to the budget? We can say you approved a dues increase of 5 cents per capita. We committed that was going to go to our key imperative of driving data research and analysis. Here are the activities that's going to support. And then on the back end, just like we talked about on the evaluation side, here's the value that brought to the member jurisdictions, right? Like it's sort of like that full circle, which I feel like we are in a position this year to really connect that. I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time, but it feels like this is, and I think that's in part this grace about presentation is Lauren and I have talked about connecting, and it may be a presentation slide that connects, this line item ties to this key imperative, and I think that's the part that I think we're trying to figure out from a presentation perspective, potentially even workshopping that with you when we're giving you real numbers at the next committee meeting. I don't wanna have like 6 crosswalks, but I think that that's kind of what it is gonna take.
The perfect example was happened this morning when the, police, I don't know if you saw the, Richmond Biz Sense, but up until about 3 years ago, Goochland didn't have a transportation director. We didn't have anybody. Coincidentally, we'd never won a smart scale application. Ever. And then this year, 3 of our 5 were awarded. I don't think that's by accident.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, and really want to keep the conversation going about this. I think it's a good conversation to have.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Davis said to keep moving.
You wanna gavel? I can gavel out.
Just, when was the last time you updated your automated systems?
We've
Yeah.
been using, I mean, I've been here 9 years and QuickBooks
That's
has
good.
been the
Okay,
system the whole time.
okay.
So I'm gonna jump to any more questions on,
Just another question.
Sure.
With these changes, will that help us with getting our reporting done on better?
the speed,
Is that-
yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's the objective.
Yes.
I probably know the answer to this, but based on the last meeting we had, I think, and maybe it was even in CBTA. Is there a chance that our auditors would give us a reduced price now that we're out of QuickBooks? Because they say that, I mean, the comment that was made by one of the an auditing firm here was, oh, we can't stand working in QuickBooks, it takes a lot longer. Well, if it's taking, we get a better system, it takes less, but maybe recoup some of that. I'm sure they say no, but I'm on TV now, so I figured I'd ask for the fiscally conservative politician that I am.
What I'll say is, I think by extending our 3-year engagement, we've committed to the fees that were negotiated for that 3-year engagement. I think we can present in the RFP for new audit services a much more attractive client.
It's still gonna be more expensive. I would ask.
But yeah,
Just.
Yeah.
Maybe just ask, say, hey, if we do this,
yeah.
but you might be surprised.
We can certainly ask.
We gavelled out, so we're adjourned, Mr. Davis.
Yeah. Before we get to the financial statements,
I'm gonna shift to the. financial
yeah,
statement.
I think they would have a problem with that, the full commission. What
Good.
y'all do?
They didn't do anything there.
We just listened.
We had good discussion.
So as a reminder, we're reviewing the fiscal year 25 Q3 activity. Please note this period covers July of 2024 through March of 2025. The detailed budget report included in your package in front of you aligns with the format that the commission approved. I would ask you to focus your attention on the high level totals, given the budget formatting changes we discussed at the February commission meeting. As some of you may recall from the CBTA Finance Committee meeting or in the materials for the upcoming CBTA Full Authority meeting, on the screen is what's called a sand key diagram. The thickness of the line represents quantity. So the thicker the line, the more dollars it represents. We are using this sand key diagram to represent the actual revenue and expenses for the fiscal year to date activity. So again, as conversations around diversifying funding continue, this type of graphic may be useful to provide a clear line of sight around the agency's different funding sources.
Is it SANKEY?
SANKEY.
By the way, this is just hot, like I love this.
Cool.
Somebody else said that at the full commission. It's a great visual, yeah.
Oh, I think it was Vice Chair. John. Yeah, I like it.
I'm going to jump to the next slide unless any discussion on this. Okay. So overall revenue and expenses are tracking at 73% and 72% respectively of the annual budgeted amounts. This is appropriate for this point in the fiscal year, given timing of certain expenses and use of additional grant funding for certain expenditures. Staff time and other expenses are being closely monitored to ensure successful delivery on agency commitments in this last quarter of the fiscal year. After accounting for projected transfers for capital reserves, primarily related to the planned upgrades on office furniture and technology hardware. A projected surplus is likely. Staff will return to the committee with a recommendation on a surplus, if any, at the fiscal year end. On the balance sheet, cash decreased 18% since the prior quarter. However, total receivables increased 13% due to a focus on invoicing the agency's most significant reimbursable grants. As we continue to find more opportunities for efficiencies, our goal is to reduce overall cash exposure by invoicing on those reimbursable grants as quickly as possible, which, Mr. Atkins, as you mentioned, the speed at which we can do reporting in a new system will certainly help us with that cash exposure. I'll pause there.
Ms. Shepherd, you mentioned, just so we can get it out, you mentioned upgrades in office furniture in what I consider a pretty brand new office. So what are we upgrading?
That's shifting. So there was furniture that came over with the old office.
Okay.
And it's replacing that to fit this office, which was, these are
Okay.
planned expenditures. Yep.
Let's just make sure.
Yeah, we were phasing it in. Yep, good
Yeah.
question.
And we did a big phase, was it like 18 months ago? Remember we had like, was it a 5-phase or a 4-phase or something?
Or it's like a 4.5 year.
Phase, yeah, and I mean, we did this room, I was like, wow.
Wrong business, right?
It's ridiculous, yeah, we're in the wrong business, yeah, we're in the wrong business. I mean, going into office furniture or financial software business and just keep doing subscription fees, that's pretty good. But is this final phase now on that, because that is, you know, it's to that point, I mean, nobody wants, you know, a busted up desk, I get that. But you know, that is one of those things that if
I'll say I am proud to say
I mean, we gotta be
that
close to being-
everybody in our office now is at a real desk
Yeah,
that works, and everybody who, there might be a handful of some outdated chairs, but most everybody has. like,
so
a
is
good-
this phase 4 of
This,
uh,
what
of the-
what we're reporting
is this
is
the final
expended
phase?
is, no, but it's things like. What's remaining are my office, Chet's office, that are,
So I think we can eliminate a lot of questions just by changing how we call it, instead of upgrading officer conversion, or
Okay.
office conversion maybe.
Okay.
The
thank you.
planned
That's
office
helpful.
conversion.
yeah,
Planned office conversion.
absolutely
Okay.
put planned in there.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Words matter.
and speaking of chair CBTA, I don't really care what Chet's desk looks like. Makes no difference to us. Sorry, Chet.
our desks came from GRP when they got new furniture,
Yeah,
so.
well,
they're
look,
pretty
our
nice.
county, yeah, yeah, I mean, one of our workrooms at the county, I walked in one day and like the chairs, they just looked bizarre, whatever, but Badesky was at a meeting, they're like, and so we were just gonna get rid of these, you know, but the problem is we don't have anybody to pick them up, and Badesky's texting like Public Works, like, we have a truck, and we're like, yeah, he's like, we'll take it, and they're like, oh, okay. But yeah, no, we do need to get there, I think, you know, but this room and a couple of other things, and audio vid was just, it was nuts.
But I think it's necessary.
It is necessary,
We,
it is.
the first time Martha and I had a
I
conversation.
said that in jest, Chet, before.
It was, if we don't have the visual, if we don't feel like innovators, how are we gonna innovate the region?
I'll be candid and say at one of the last commission or CBTA meetings where I was sitting in the back, I did ask Mr. Kumar, are there speakers in the back? Cause I actually think all the construction happening on the street,
Yeah,
the sound in the back is less clear than if you were dialing in online. And we want to make sure.
and it is a public forum, and we have to make sure that, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we upgraded a lot of stuff in the county boardroom. And surprisingly with TV, I don't know if y'all been to Hanover, we had a lot more monitors where folks in the audience could see and some different things. And the people were like, wow, this makes it a lot easier to have the information. So that's fine. I was just wondering because I remember Winslow Winslow signed the lease on this. And then I came in and I was like, man, so, okay, I think the other thing, that's big is while we're looking at number four, I guess, 1, 2, 3, 4, is the invoicing goes back to what, I don't know, a number of people talked about, certain statements talks about. We just stay up on that, which I know we are, but it's easy for those things to get caught in a regular cycle. And we may need to kind of toss regularity out the window, particularly on invoicing, because that will help us stay current. And if there's ever a problem, the email, that's top in the email box for somebody is the one that they pay attention to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, it's time to start writing checks. They're like, damn, somebody please write PlanRVA a check, because they'll stop emailing. And I say that half in jest, but there's some seriousness in that. Okay, thank you.
Those are all my prepared materials and
Yeah.
remarks. Happy to have more discussion where needed.
Time you see surplus, that's.
Happy with surpluses. Yeah. All right. You think anybody will have, I mean, we've always run, we're not at, we don't run 33.3%, every quarter. I'm sorry, 25% every quarter.
I hope we don't.
So we don't run 25%.
Did you hear what I just said?
Yeah, yes. Who's chairing this committee? Who knows math? Y'all do realize you have 2 Marines on a numbers committee. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. But we're not running, because sometimes, first quarter, particularly second quarter, those numbers can be over 25%, over 50%. But I mean, here, we're looking pretty solid. What was your thing about dues? You just wanted to connect, value to the,
Yeah.
okay.
Could you increase?
Yeah, that's my only question. Anything further from staff? All right, anything from committee members as we finish? Anything from staff for final comments? Any attending agencies?
We do need to talk about meeting date at the next committee meeting.
Yeah, what was that? I saw,
We didn't have a date confirmed and
I
so
thought we talked about something in, was it May?
yes,
I saw, what was that date?
we were hoping for the 20th, if that's a possibility for the committee members.
I can't do that. I mean, I could do, this probably messes y'all up though, to do like a noon and bring in lunch. Does that mess y'all up to drive in that? I mean,
Not particular.
you okay?
That's breaks the date up, but
On the
that's fine.
20th?
Yeah.
What day is the
Or
20th?
the 21st, I mean,
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I have an appointment from 11 to 12 in the West End.
Okay,
Difficult for me.
sure. I mean, Wednesday would be okay anytime there, but
I'm fine anytime Wednesday too.
you want to do,
What day is it?
Wednesday's the 21st. Y'all want to do lunch there or do early morning?
I'm an early morning person, but I.
Yeah,
can be-
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can do it. We'll do 9.
would the committee members be okay if we met in a smaller meeting room?
I'm fine.
It's.
Yeah, we just got
Actually,
audio bit there.
it's easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
You talking about the one right over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we used to meet up.
We'll have new furniture, right?
Fill the old-
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So Wednesday, May 21st, 9 AM.
Or I think, is that what you said, 9 AM?
9. Let's do 9.
You've got something here.
Yeah, I'll move, I'm supposed to give a presentation in this room, but I'll just tell them that I need to move, they need to readjust their account. So it's okay.
All right, so we'll set that and you'll send out. Scott, thank you for that. Okay, perfect. Anything further? Okay, the time is 10:24. We are adjourned.
Thank you.